Hi, everyone. Welcome
Hello.
to our presentation. Shimri and I just wanted to give you a brief moment to look at our beautiful faces. So welcome so much, or welcome to our presentation today. I know that the headlines might have drawn you in for today. So we're really excited to talk about some incredible people who were admitted to top MBA programs. I'm Jen T, CEO of Aringo, and this is Shimri Winters, head of our strategy team.
Yeah, I'm Shimri Winters. I'm a London Business School grad. I've been at Aringo for 10 years now, and I head the strategy team.
That was perfect. Okay, so we are again with Aringo, and we're an MBA admissions consulting firm. We help everybody with their MBA applications and other graduate program applications, from anything from determining what your strategy should be, chances estimation, all the way to the end of, scholarship negotiation and much, much more. So we're here to help. You can always look at our website to see what we have to offer, but we'll also answer any questions you have along the way.
Yeah.
And then Shimri, one last slide about Aringo.
We're very good. We have very good statistics. Check us out. One of the things at Aringo that we love is low GMAT scores. So I have a 660 GMAT in the old GMAT, which is around 605 in the GMAT Focus edition, and I got into London Business School. So with Aringo help 10 years ago. So when I went, so great.
Okay, so today we're going to dive into 5 different profiles of candidates that either had below average or average profiles, and talk about how the strategy of their application helped them get into these top MBA programs and the success that they had. And that's why Shimri is here, because Shimri can talk to the strategy that the team kind of put together for the client and the consultant to kind of really build up that application. And so, yeah.
So let's introduce the first person that we worked with.
All right. So this guy, he was a really great guy. I remember him. So he was obviously an Indian male. He had about 7 years of experience working at a Big Four. And he had a CFA. So he had already kind of mentioned that, like, he was kind of heading towards the financial side of things. His CGPA was good. And then his GMAT score was a 690 at the time. Which, converting it over to the new Focus edition, Shimri was so kind to do that for us. And he only wanted INSEAD. That was like his number one school. So Shimri, tell us what the team did to kind of make him stand out in a sea of Indian male engineers.
Yes. So again, he did study engineering, like you said, but then did a conversion and then to accounting, did the CFA, and actually worked in consulting in one of the Big Four. And it's, when you come from an overrepresented background and, you have another million candidates, it's a real problem. And a lot of people, ask us or tell us, but I work in a Big Four, isn't that an advantage? And actually, when you have kind of a standard, like like I said, overrepresented profile, it's actually sometimes a disadvantage, because if you work at Deloitte, someone else works at PwC. If you have a 690 GMAT, someone else might have a 700. You have 6 years of experience, they have 7. So when you actually work in one of these big companies, yes, it's great. It's a tier 1 brand, a Big Four, firm. But sometimes it's also, a bit a disadvantage, because it's very easy to compare you to other candidates. So what we knew...
Shimri, sometimes I tell candidates that, having that experience is at least kind of like a standard, a level of standard of training or experience, at least also that an admissions committee can expect from somebody who came from like a Big Four, or even if they're coming from a consulting firm, MBBs. And so, like, there is some advantage there too, right? Like that they have this higher level of experience. And
Correct.
Particularly if you can stay at one of these firms for over a year, it means like you can cut mustard. Or is that the term that you cut the mustard? No, that doesn't sound right. But that's another thing I kind of like to add sometimes when people ask about, is this helpful or not helpful?
But you can say I was in this, I think, up or out environment, and the fact that I had kind of promotions shows that I was very good in this place that I was. So in this specific case, again, we thought that the profile was a bit average or kind of standard. And we were really looking for differentiators. So as you can see here in the strategy, we were talking a lot about his international experience. He had 2 very big projects that we focused on for 2 big clients. One of them was international. And again, we kind of said, we talked a lot about his experience working with an international client. And then we went to look at his personal attributes or hobbies. And actually, you know, he was downplaying them at the beginning, but then we discovered he was practicing for a triathlon. And we thought that was special, and it shows a lot of commitment, and he was working with a running group, and, you know, that was something nice. The next thing we did, we were thinking together about his career goals, and we decided to be ambitious. And although if you look at INSEAD, a lot of people come to us and say, oh, I won INSEAD because, you know, what are they famous for, Jen? Consulting. You know, and it's very easy if you look at someone like this. And hello to all the joiners on the chat. Please tell us where you're from. So, you know, yeah, this guy could have easily said, you know, he wants to go to an MBB consulting position. But actually, we joined his finance experience, his passion. And he actually told us he wants to go to private equity, which is a bit of a niche post MBA. But still, and schools don't always like when you write kind of a very small industry. But still, we went with private equity. We kind of joined it to finance. We went to entrepreneurship. We showed some unique angles, a lot of cultural openness, and, you know, his hobbies. And I think you can see here the result, 1 out of 1.
Yeah. So the other thing to note is like schools like INSEAD, LBS, Columbia specifically, these kind of schools are really looking for candidates to have that international experience ahead of time. And that was something that this guy had because he had worked at the beginning before. He had clients that were across Southeast Asia and the Middle East. So he had a good amount of travel personally and with his work. So those are the, you know, added benefits that he brought to stand out in the crowd. So
Jen, I just, before we move to the next slide, I wanted to say specifically the European programs and the Asian programs. So I'm actually taking out the US programs. They give extra brownie points for international experience. Now, we work with a lot of Indian clients who have never left India. Okay, but still, if you've had an international client, if you've worked with an international team, if you've worked with a diverse team in any environment, maybe a volunteering environment, you know, like you said, INSEAD, London Business School give extra points for these things. They're looking out for them. So definitely mention any kind of diverse teams that you've worked with or international experiences, even if it wasn't per se, I relocated to Germany and worked there for a year. Okay, it can be, you know, something else.
Awesome. All right. Okay, we're moving on to the next one. Actually, you know what? I forgot that I wanted to take one minute to kind of explain a little bit about the Aringo process and how things kind of work and how we got to this strategy that helped this guy stand out. So in a normal process for an Aringo client, first, you know, we have you kind of fill out some background documents that helps us get to know you really quickly. And then after that, they get sent over to our strategy team, and we'll talk about that specifically. I'll have Shimri talk about his experience there. And then after the strategy, then, you know, you and your consultant work together through the entire process. And then you have 2 additional consultants reviewing things. One is going to be kind of like an admissions professional kind of editor role and our QA. And then the other one would be a school expert, right? So, you know, by the time somebody gets to the finish line of submitting an application, you know, at least 3 different admissions professionals have, you know, reviewed the entire application. But kind of kicking everything off is our strategy process. And Shimri, kind of tell us what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of went through it. What we really believe at Aringo is as many eyes as possible, and, you know, just reviewing and re-reviewing the applications, and even at the strategy stage, before we write one essay or one thing, we have a strategy team of 4 people where we kind of go into every aspect of the applicants. Usually, I kind of summarize it and speak to the applicants. And we kind of look for strengths, weaknesses, maybe something that we don't want to emphasize. And obviously, like what we do want to emphasize, what's the meat? What are the stories that we want to tell the schools? And a lot of times applicants are not in the right direction. I can give some examples. It's fascinating that your grandma was a role model when you were 14, but maybe you have a very impressive professional and extracurricular experience ever since. On the other hand, maybe you don't. And Jen, I think it's time for me to tell you a personal secret. I don't know if you know about me.
Oh.
I have a 660 and I got into London Business School and I had quite a regular professional experience. So what did I play on? What was my key story? And I, at the age of 16, was a squash champion. And for some people, that is less important because you're applying at age 27 or 28. Who cares what you did at 16? But for some candidates, if that's the key strength that you can show, that you practice a lot, you practice part of a team, but on competition days, it was you by yourself and you got injured and you managed to overcome that. So in my case, there was a story there. So I used that story for the additional information essay. So I'm saying that's exactly what we do in the strategy team and the strategy stage. We kind of look for the interesting stories. We kind of try and point the candidates in the right direction. If there are shortcomings, like I said at Aringo, we love low GMATs or low GPAs. We have those candidates a lot, and we find how to overcome those shortcomings. Try and help you choose the best recommenders, what to emphasize in the CV and the essays, all of that.
Okay,
let's talk about another profile, and we can demonstrate that live.
And then we have Kiddo. Kiddo joined us. Nice to see you here. Thanks for sharing your profile. We can definitely dive into that a little bit later during the Q&A session. All right. So the next guy that we wanted to talk about was a guy that kind of came from a family business. And he was an American male, 5 years of experience, worked in his family's real estate business that it was international. So he does have some international experience as well. GMAT was a hurdle. And so we decided, instead of going with a low GMAT, to try these GMAT waivers in round one. And then if we needed to, we could always tackle maybe potentially taking the GMAT in round two if needed. But things have prevailed. So he had an average GMAT score from an average, an average GPA from an average school, nothing stand out there. And he wanted to apply to Cornell, obviously, for real estate, NYU, USC, MIT, and Tuck. So Shimri, how did you pull something out of a rabbit out of a hat?
Yeah, actually doubled this because he applied with his best friend, who also came from family business. Same story of the GMAT. They kind of wanted to study together, although they split up in the end. One went to NYU and one went to MIT. I'm giving you the end already. But so yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a nightmare at the beginning because these GMAT waivers, it's a bit new. They've only been since COVID, these schools are offering GMAT waivers. And we don't always know, even when we have quite a good candidate in our eyes, we don't always know how the school will look at this. And why didn't you take the GMAT? And your GPA isn't that high, so can you show academic ability? So in this case, this guy did come from a family business, but there was no website. The family business is real estate, but there's no way to prove it. So it was a real nightmare. Okay, which recommender do you bring? He doesn't have a boss. His father started a real estate business. He doesn't even have clients, really. So it was, which stories, okay, he buys real estate and he rents it out. Which stories should we use here? So what we used here was, first of all, we said he was in the business from a young age. And this is also a wow factor, that throughout college, he was working in the family business. And we referenced banks that he was working with for loans for the real estate projects that they were acquiring. We discussed 2 or 3 big projects that were kind of restructuring. I think he bought some of a partnership, some real estate, and then he had to kind of restructure it and then sell it to someone else. It was quite complicated, but we kind of showed that. We discussed partnerships. So you can't, if you want to grow the business, it's very hard to do by yourself. So how did he do that? And we discussed a lot of his personal life as well. So he volunteered in a couple of places. He liked surfing. So I know it sounds strange, but we kind of discussed other things because we kind of said, let the business talk, through the CV, and the essays we'll use kind of for all different other attributes that he had. We found some unique angles in his case. Again, he had various cross-cultural experiences. Most of them were just to do with his travel post-college, but we use that as well. A lot of leadership. He didn't really manage people, but we felt that when he was project managing these real estate projects, so again, he had to lead the project. There were subcontractors, there were banks, there were secretaries, there were accountants, there were lawyers. So he was leading the project, although he wasn't managing anyone. Like I said, he had some community involvement. And of course, we discussed his strong financial skills because all of his job was analytical. Okay, he's probably very good with spreadsheets. He had to check if the project is worthwhile. We did have a bit of a dilemma in the career goals because it wasn't with the career goals. It was obvious that he's going to stay and try and expand the family business. But there was a question, okay, why MBA? Okay, you're already leading the family business. You're doing very well. Okay, so kind of why do you need the MBA? And we had to just tie all the knots together and to show that an MBA would add a lot of value to him and to the business. Luckily, we managed to do that. And he got accepted to a number of the schools he wanted to go to.
Awesome. I think there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about that we can pull out from his profile that are important. One is family business. I think that a lot of times people don't know that there's so much value in that. Even if your family ran a shop, right, like a grocery store or something like that, it's still something important to share with the admissions committee because they can see, one, like that you were part of something where you have such a large investment in the outcome, and that you also, like, if your family business is running a shop, so you may have to like go and get the inventory or deliver the inventory, run the cash register, like anything like that you might have to do. You learn that at a young age, and it kind of carried through everything that you did after you graduated from college and the other jobs you had. So that's important. The other thing is the career goal. So, schools, especially if you're looking at the statistics that are coming out, are really, really concerned about job placement percentages. And it's dropped a little bit this year. And so any bit of reassurance that you can give an admissions committee that you're going to have a job after you graduate, that's not just from them, but also like something that you might be able to attain easily, like returning to our current company or returning to the family business, or even having that as a backup plan, definitely helps your chances for them to say, okay, we can take a risk on somebody with a GMAT waiver if they're going to give us a solidified, like 100% employment before they graduate and help boost our statistics. So
agreed.
Just a little
agreed. Jen, I would say, and someone who doesn't have that, okay, not all of us come from a family business. Employability, I agree, is a big. It was always a huge factor when MBAs come and review applications, and it's just going to grow more and more. So it's amazing that you've been an accountant and your dream is to be a NASA astronaut, but schools won't take a risk with someone like that. Okay, so it definitely you have to show kind of a clear line between your past, your future. It has to make sense, and you have to explain how you're going to find this job. And I want to go to Harvard because I want them to help me find a job. That's just not good enough today. You're going to have to show that you're employable, and you have in your past plus the MBA the right characteristics and the right experience for that job that you're aiming for post MBA. So definitely agree about that.
Awesome. Okay, you ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right.
Who do you choose?
Woo. All right. So This is one of my favorites. So I met this gal. She was a little bit down and out because she was like, I just don't have anything that stands out in a super way for my profile. She was an engineer by trade, Indian female, 7 years of experience. And I mean, I think that that's also like another call out of some of these profiles. The 7 years of experience is a little bit older than the normal, but it's not bad because it means that you have more experience, more growth. And for her specifically, she was able to move from being an engineer to being a product manager, which again is a big advantage. She had a good CGPA, average GMAT score, was really keen on, she really wanted to be in like UK, but was also okay with Kellogg. And so we threw her hat in the ring for there too. Shimri, what did you guys find in her strategy review?
I'm pausing and saying, keep writing questions on the chat, and we are doing 5 profile reviews, and then we'll answer questions on the chat. So, keep asking questions. And we're just going to show you a few more profiles before we kind of kick into them. But like we can see the questions on the chat, so keep asking them. So actually, this girl was great, but I'll actually start with the pitfalls. Okay, so I'll start with the things which aren't amazing. Yes, she comes from an overrepresented background. That's a fact. Okay. Second of all, yes, the 720 GMAT or 665 in GMAT Focus Edition is kind of average. And a lot of times schools from an engineer, might expect a bit higher GMAT. So yes, that was average. Third, product management might sound really sexy, Jen. It was actually in a startup that just kind of started. Okay, so that's how she made the move. It wasn't Google. Okay, it was a 20 people startup. A few pitfalls. But now let's talk about what we did. So first of all, we did talk a bit about the transition from engineer to product management, and we kind of celebrated that. We said, a lot of people want to do that transition. A lot of people go for an MBA to do that transition, but she's already managed to do that. She managed to move from a very, very, very technical role to a business leading, business involving role. Product management, you talk to clients, you talk to the business side of things, and then you kind of help R&D and help the development decide how the product might look. She actually helped this startup launch a product. Okay, so that's nice. Okay, end-to-end launching a product. She didn't have a lot of international experience, but the startup investors were from Singapore. And guess what we spoke about? The startup investors and how she worked with the startup team. So that was a few unique angles. Another thing is this startup was in fintech, and we then completely decided, okay, so you're a fintech expert, you're a product manager in a fintech startup, your future wants to be in tech, wants to be in fintech. Let's just discuss that. Like, no, let's not leave any room for randomness. And then the short and long-term career goals were very easy to define. It's exactly what you want. We're not bending the truth or anything. It's exactly what you want. She wanted to go and work in a big company now as a product manager, and then long-term to found her own startup. I was thinking, should we leave in the chat which school she decided to go to in the end, or shall we? Okay, she went to LBS. She actually went to LBS. There's actually a question in the chat. We'll answer the questions later, but can we say something about the scholarships? And I remember her story is just amazing. So she actually got accepted. 2 weeks later, she got a £20,000 scholarship. 1 month later, she got, actually, you've been nominated for, I can't remember what it was, Young President something scholarship. So it's actually 35. 1 week later, she said, actually, you've been nominated for the Dean Scholarship, so it's 45. Then, so she got like 6. By the way, it's not, the scholarships don't accumulate. They replace each other. In the end, I think she got over 50%. I can't remember if it was 50% or more, but she kept getting bumped up in the scholarship ladder. I think it was 3 or 4 times. And she decided to go to LBS, a bit because of the location of London Business School as a bit of a fintech hub, London. Of course, London Business School is a great school, so there's no doubt there. I think one of the schools also offered her 100% scholarship, but she went for London.
Yeah. I think she was really keen on London, and she was over the moon. And I'll say that continuously getting scholarship is not as common. So I don't want to make that like something like where somebody's now dreaming of every week getting a bump in scholarship.
Sure.
She
Very
became more
uncommon.
and more competitive as they went through the applicant pool. So
Sure.
no misleading here, but yeah, so she was very, very happy. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and we'll discuss scholarship
okay.
in the Q&A.
Any other
Okay,
questions anybody have?
Let's go. We'll discuss the Q&A.
The next one I think will be.
I think we have two more
got it.
profiles, and then we can answer questions. So who's this guy? Oh, I know who.
Okay, so this actually was one of, so if you don't know, Shimri is from Israel, and this is somebody who actually kind of was referred from a friend to a friend to a friend to Shimri, and he had been in the Navy for 7 years, but no like corporate or, company experience, but was, he had a lot of leadership experience. And so there's obviously some potential there. He had an average GPA from, I think, probably the second best school in Israel, and then, an average GMAT score. But he wanted only top schools. So Harvard, Wharton, and Chicago, Booth. So how did you work your magic for your family friend here?
Yeah, so we actually love people who come from unorthodox backgrounds. Okay, and of course, most of our candidates are.
Outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, most of our applicants are lawyers, accountants, engineers. So first of all, if you're not a lawyer, accountant, engineer, that's usually an advantage. Don't think that's a disadvantage, because you might be different. Again, if you are an accountant, lawyer, engineer, that's okay. Still, 60-70% of the MBAs are, but this is an advantage. And you're absolutely right, Jen. Not a very good school, not a very good not a very good GMAT, not a very good or non-existent business experience. Okay, this guy was in the Navy, and that's it. I don't really know what you do in the Navy, but you lead ships to go somewhere. Actually, we didn't know what to do with him. We started interviewing him, and we kind of said, like, what did you do in your childhood? What were your hobbies then? And then he said, I didn't really do much. I was just in the Sea Scouts most of my childhood, And we were like, huh, that's interesting. And what do you do now in your spare time? He says, I don't really do much. I have a skipper's license, and when there's a holiday from the Navy, I go on a boat, on a yacht, or around some islands, and with my family. We were like, looks like there's kind of a connection here, right? Like you like the sea, right? He said, yeah, of course. That's my professional, my personal. We said, okay. So now what do you do at your work? Well, he mainly leads people. Okay, like in an army environment, you mainly, very early on, when you're 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, you start leading more and more and more people. So this guy had a lot of leadership experience, very good communication skills. And he kind of explained to us that the Navy was kind of a melting point where people came from all over the country, from different backgrounds and different experiences. And there were new immigrants and, different languages, female and men together. And it was a very diverse environment. And we kind of discussed his communication skills, his kind of EQ skills. And we kind of asked him, what are your career goals? And he really didn't know. Okay, he just doesn't have a clue what he wants to be when he grows up, which is fine. But when we kind of thought about what he's done and his passions, etc., we were discussing maritime consulting. And he was telling us that in his country, there's a lot of gas that was found in the sea. And these huge energy companies are coming and drilling in the middle of the sea. And there's a lot of issues there. Environmental issues, security issues. What happens if a terrorist comes and does something? Security issues, business issues. Is it worth it or not? And we kind of, told him to go and research this a bit. And then he said, oh yeah, some of my friends work in maritime consulting and in the big energy companies. And, this really interests me. And he said, like, oh, great. So we kind of found the connection with this guy from, childhood to future to present. And it all went through the sea. We added this to kind of some hobbies that he had. He liked to play tennis. I know it sounds strange, but he was like quite good, like me. I don't know, whatever, champion when he was 14 or 16. But we kind of discussed that a lot as well. And there was one other angle that Jennifer kind of touched at the beginning, that his parents had a grocery shop. Not a very big business, and not a, not a chain of supermarkets. They had one grocery shop, but he used to kind of work in this grocery shop from an early stage. And we kind of asked him, what were your responsibilities? And he said, oh, at the beginning I used to sort out the cornflakes boxes. And then I used to kind of, when the suppliers came, I used to kind of meet them and count, that they brought everything and pay them. And then actually I was in charge of the shop. And we were like, this is good. So we kind of used this as well to show that although this was when he was a child before he joined the Navy, he had this kind of business influence. I won't say business experience, but he was in the business. He understood how the business worked. Great story. Someone asked about in the chat, is there a chance to get a high scholarship? Well, he got 2 100% scholarships. So yes, there is a chance. And it's all in the story. And you can see the GMAT wasn't high. The diversity, he's not a woman from Fiji. Okay. We just used the strong stories that we could find, and it all worked out.
Yeah. And Natasha, you were asking about, the entrepreneurial experience. And so, again, it doesn't have to be like something like the real estate guy, like where he grew up with something a lot more concrete and foundationally related to business. Like this guy, he didn't even know that he had these skills of, running the cash register, finding vendors, and helping helping customers and things like that. So again, it can be this broad range. It's more of how you pitch the story. I mean, honestly, it's all about marketing, right, Shimri? Like this guy had kind of nothing when he came to us, and we were able to pull these things out and make a story for him. And I think like that's the biggest thing for anybody. When I talk to them, we do a lot of free profile evaluations. We'll share the link at the end, but it's all about connecting the dots for the admissions committee. Where were you? Where are you? Where do you want to go? How do we fit into that? And then what's your future look like? And
Correct.
yes.
I just want to say that we didn't, I don't know how to rephrase it. We didn't invent anything. He had all this, but he didn't, like you said, Jen, he didn't know he had it, kind of thing. And I used to look at the cash register when I was 15 because my dad used to go out. Yeah, that's wow at 15. So not everybody has that, but everybody has something. And what we like to do is to use whatever that something is to show your uniqueness. I don't know what that something is for each one of you. I need to kind of know you a bit better for that. But everybody has something. Maybe you were playing chess. Maybe you were playing volleyball. Maybe you were volunteering somewhere. Maybe you were just studying very hard. Okay, that's fine. But you achieved very good scores in high school. Maybe you moved to another area and you had to overcome some kind of cultural gap. Whatever your story is, we can elaborate on it. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so final profile of the day is our female finance professional. Now, this is one of my favorite clients ever, so she's personal to me. But she had been working in consumer banking, common name like Bank of America, Truist, Chase, working at one of those companies. And she had gone through a rotational program to go to different parts of the business and get exposed to it, and had some leadership there. Again, this is a moment where the GMAT just was not working out. It was not showing her skill level, those types of things. And so we decided, instead of aiming for top 30, top 50 MBA programs,
with the GMAT,
convinced her she should take a chance at the waiver schools, and it really did pay off. I mean, it was really great, like how this story all works. But I don't know if I'm gonna try to rival Shimri's squash championship, but she did play tennis during college, so there's some leadership, finance, business background, and she's really motivated. And so it's a really exciting story for me personally, because I love it. But Shimri, What else did you pull out from the background?
So what I think the story here was this. She actually had a good professional experience, but actually like the foundation wasn't so good because she didn't have a GMAT. She had a very low GMAT. So like Jen said, let's just go with the GMAT waiver. She didn't have a very good GPA. There wasn't a family business. There wasn't the chess whatever champion. She was playing tennis in college. But again, her leadership, her professional experience was good. She had 6 years, very good, like you said, like a rotation program in a big bank. So first of all, we just went on what there is, okay? And we spoke a lot about her fast track promotion and her progress. And again, when you work for a bank or financial services environment even, it's obvious that you have strong analytical skills. We showed a lot of diversity experience, again, with kind of working with people from all over the world. We did kind of use a few things that she had in college, the tennis, like you said, Jen. She was just a TA, and we used that as well. And then we just kind of discussed her, a lot of her communication skills, again, working with diverse teams, progressing very fast. And it was good. We also did take a bit of a chance with the career goals. And we kind of, we asked her what she wants to do. And she kind of said, I do enjoy the financial services, but I kind of want to move to strategy. And we said, oh, you mean corporate strategies? And she said, like, if that's what it's called, yes. And so it's really what she wanted, but she didn't really know how to identify the exact position. And we did. It's very important to mention, to be very specific to schools when they're asking about career goals. And schools know, like, this is you taking your best bet on what you'll be in the future. They know it's not 100% sure. This girl might, she's right now a student, she might go in the end to McKinsey, or she might go back to the bank and be a banker. Okay, but they're asking you, okay, but if you had one chance, like, and close your eyes and picture your future kind of thing, where do you see yourself? And we managed to, when we discussed with this candidate, we managed to think together about this corporate strategy in a financial services organization, concentrating on business transactions like M&A or internal projects, etc. And it really did all kind of tightly fit together. So it worked. She got admitted, Jen, and I think she owes you a lot because, like you said, she was aiming at the beginning for very low tier business schools because of her low GMAT. So on her behalf, thank you, Jen.
I think she needs to thank Shiro, to be honest. He's the one who strung the story together.
And we have a very good team.
Her. And I think, like, and I know that a lot of people were like, wow, how did she get a full ride to Cornell without a GMAT score? It's not unheard of. It is rare, so don't get too crazy and excited about it. Like that it's going to happen
it's doable
for everyone. But I think that the biggest thing is like resonating with that specific school when you're writing your applications. Cornell is a tight-knit family. And when you talk about coming from a small college, being part of like leading the tennis team, being part of, managing a core team, for her in a banking situation, those things all kind of resonate with them. And the other kind of key thing is like, if you, and I don't think she was able to do this ahead of time, but if you can always get endorsements from current students for a couple of schools. And so Cornell is one of those. So I had a client a couple of years ago. He got admitted with like a 670 with a GMAT score. And he did his networking. He busted his butt to get the right people to endorse him. And he got waitlisted, and those people on the that endorsed him fought for him to be able to join Cornell, and he got off the wait list and got scholarship. So it's not impossible to get in, but it's really showing that connection and dedication to that specific school that can help win admit and scholarship in the end. So
correct. I think the bottom line here.
Anything else to share about my friend here?
I think in all the 5 profiles, by chance, by the way, all of them, as you saw, the GMAT was in 2 of them non-existent, and in 3 of them, average or below average. And GMAT is very important, maybe one of the biggest factors when business schools come to look at your profile, but it's one factor. And I think that's what we were trying to show here, that there's different factors you can work on. You can work on the family business, and you can work on your hobbies, and you can work on your college tennis experience, and your professional experience, and your international traveling. There's different angles that you can show the school that you have excelled in the past, and you would be a great fit for their class. Like Jen said, one of them is just showing how much fit you have for Cornell or for another school. So I think that's that, and I can see a few questions on the chat. First of all, check us out on aringo.com. Whoever missed the beginning, we're a boutique MBA admission consulting firm. I work personally, I'm head of the strategy team with 100% of our candidates on their strategy. And then we have this process that you can go to the beginning of this presentation and check out. Jen, I might read you a couple of questions and you can answer them. Is that okay?
Oh, I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. So, by the way, thanks everybody for participating in the chat as well. And if you're leaving, bye-bye, that's okay. So there was a question, okay, and I think we kind of discussed it. But if you have kind of, what's your chance for like a big scholarship, Jen? Like what have we seen with our candidates? I can't go without a 70, 80% scholarship.
Well, then that all kind of comes with school list, right? Like, I'll be honest, I know that we had one guy who got 100% scholarship at 2, and they do happen once in a while, but I don't want anybody to think that like they're as common as you could think. I think that a lot of schools try to spread out their scholarship across the gamma so that everybody gets a little something. But again, like, I would not aim for HSW thinking, oh, I'm going to get 100% scholarship. The way that I would kind of, and I usually talk to clients about this, is, looking at your school list, how you want to do this is like, what is most important to you? Is it the ranking of the school or the funding? And kind of determining what that gamma looks like. If you're applying to Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, fantastic, but knowing that scholarship chances might be a little bit lower. And then, knowing that maybe applying to Duke, Yale, Darden may yield a little bit higher scholarship based on where your profile falls of being more or less competitive. But Jen, there's also some special scholarships out there. There's like the Forte scholarship. Yeah. What else?
Let me take it even wider, what you were saying, and saying that at the beginning of our process, when we work with our candidates on school selection, we ask them, okay, so what's important for you? Is it school ranking? Is it a high scholarship? Is it the location? It's great that Chicago and Kellogg are amazing schools, but it's minus 30 degrees there in the winter. Maybe that doesn't work for you. Okay. Oh, you want to be in the West Coast? Well, Boston isn't in the West Coast. Okay, so a lot of times the location is important, the length of the degree. So there's many factors here, not just cost. For example, length of program might have a better return on investment than any scholarship. Okay, if NCAD is 10 months, the return on investment might be much higher than a 2-year MBA program, regardless of scholarships. So there's many factors here, and that's one of the factors that we talk to our clients. So yes, I actually checked our statistics. We had 18 full scholarships last year. That's 100% scholarships. But we also had over 56% of our candidates received a scholarship. A scholarship can be 20%, 30%, 50% of tuition. So most of the candidates do receive something. But again, what do you receive? It really depends on the schools, but it also depends on you. What are you kind of looking for? So that was that. It's a bit hard to give a kind of a chances assessment on this chat. So thank you, Kiddo, for sending like your information. Again, I don't know which schools you're applying to. I don't know where you work. I don't know how your GMAT will go. But if you're working right now on the GMAT, this presentation is at the end of January. You have a couple of months to work on the GMAT for 2026. We have time. Take another 2, 3, 4 months, work on the GMAT. That's definitely what you guys are supposed to be doing now if you're aiming for September 26th. So there's a question from Arun, and I actually think I'll take it also a bit wide. If you're an Indian male, so maybe you come from an engineer, maybe you come from an overrepresented background, with a 655 GMAT Focus Edition, so around 710 in the old GMAT, and 10 years of experience with a bit of international experience, kind of, what are your chances, or what's the feedback, or what schools should you aim for? Tough question, Jen, I know.
Yeah, 10 years is at the high end here.
Correct. So first of all, what Jen is saying is up to 10 years of experience is fine for the regular full-time MBA programs. If you have more than 12, between 10 to 12, okay, that's a limbo zone. But more than 12, I would say check out our video MBA over 30. You might want to look at dedicated programs for senior candidates. Remember that the regular MBA programs are for younger candidates.
Yeah, and there's a lot of one-year MBA programs that are out there that can, again, capitalize on the years of experience you already have, plus your academic readiness for the program. You're still sharp, even though you might have been in school 10 years ago. And then, plus a one-year MBA, it puts you into, the ability to quickly join the workforce with that. And so those are like tech MBAs. Those are some options too. At Cornell, NYU, IESC, Kellogg. Kellogg has a one-year program. Emory has a one-year program. And then for that, like 8+ years of work experience, you can kind of even look at like Foster Global EMBA program, USC iBear, RSM, a lot of different programs that
talk to us offline,
towards
but what
senior MBA category.
First of all, talk to us, and we can point you out to the right program. I think 10 years is exactly like should you go for the 2-year or for the 1 year? But bottom line is 655, that's fine. We're not worried if the GMAT's a bit lower than the average, that's fine. International experience is good. And like we said before, if you come from an overrepresented background, again, we just need to dig up some interesting things and try and differentiate you from other candidates. And, that's what we do for a living. I mean, we love it. Okay, I think
Shimri, I had a question about engineer management. So I think
I'm assuming he's talking about the IMBA, like in Kellogg, or the joint degrees, like MIT, LGO, etc. Because this session is more about the MBA. So I'm kind of going.
There's some other like engineering management. There's some that are specifically put on by engineering programs as well. Yep. And I think it all depends on where your career where you want to take your career. Like if that is like specifically where you want to go, it's almost like somebody asking about a master's in business analytics, right? If that is your area and where you want to be, then going to a specialized program is amazing. It's the best opportunity for you to get in, potentially get scholarship, and get out and have a job where you want to be. So I wouldn't shy away from, engineering management programs, and get caught up in the whole MBA thing, because there's definitely a lot of different options out there. So we can also help you with those. We help with graduate programs across the gamma.
Correct. I love that. And I think your definition was great. I think MBA opens a lot of options. But I think dedicated master programs, if you know what you want to be when you grow up and you find that master program that leads you to there, that's a great thing. So I definitely agree. So I think those were kind of the main questions on the chat. I really enjoyed this. I love talking about our past candidates. I miss some of them, Jen. It's a problem. We're working with some great
I know
candidates
that's
this year as well.
it's so sad when they graduate.
Okay, but please check us out on aringo.com.
Both of our contact information is here on the screen. Feel free. There's a bit of a lag in the video, so this is even more comical, but you guys can definitely check us out. I have a link here for a free profile evaluation. I'll make sure to include it on the YouTube chat function once we get done. And then, yeah, this has been fun. Thanks, Shimri.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And thanks, guys. Great questions. Hope to see some of your profiles and see you soon. And good luck.